The question landed in your mind before the first siren ever pierced the afternoon air. Can a 16-year-old black girl make a courtroom listen, really listen, when it's trained not to? Amani Rhodes didn't look like a threat to anyone's career. 16, plaid school blazer, spiral curls pulled into a practical bun, and a backpack sagging with textbooks. She stepped off the bus onto her block in the lower ninth of New Orleans, the asphalt soft in the heat and the sky tinny with the echo of cicadas. Her little brother Jay waved a basketball from the porch. Her mom Lila, still in scrubs from a hospital double, rolled into the driveway and gave that tired, proud smile Amani lived for. Then the sirens turned the afternoon inside out. Two squad cars coughed to a stop curbside. Doors opened. Officers scanned the street like it was a catalog of problems, then walked straight for the girl with the honor roll pin. Amani Rhodes? The taller one had a voice built to stamp out questions. "Yes, sir," she said, straightening without thinking. "You're under arrest for obstruction of justice." The cuffs were on before her mother could kill the engine. Lila shouted her daughter's name. Jay's ball thudded off the porch and rolled into the street. Amani stayed still, as if any movement might set off an explosion no one had prepared her for. At the precinct, fluorescents hummed like insects. A camera flashed. Ink rolled each fingertip. The charge, tampering with a federal investigation tied to a neighborhood mechanic named Mr. DeMarcus. Kind, precise. The man who taught Jay the difference between a wrench and a ratchet and refused to let Lila pay full price when the alternator died. A week ago, he'd come to Amani with shaking hands. Someone had planted stolen parts in his garage, he said. He needed help writing a complaint that didn't sound like panic. Amani, who binge-watched YouTube lectures on criminal procedure instead of TikTok dances, helped him structure a clean letter. Time, place, itemized allegations, request for review. Words, not weapons. Now the words were a crime. A door opened. A suit stepped in, hair slicked like glass. "Cole Whitaker, Assistant District Attorney," he said, almost bored. "You like playing lawyer, I hear." "I helped a friend put truth on paper," Amani replied, meeting his eyes. "And now his case is a mess. Which means my case is a mess." A smile that didn't touch his eyes. "We'll keep this easy. Take a plea. Probation. Some community hours. You finish high school. A year from now, no one remembers Amani pulled a cracked paperback from her backpack. Gideon V. Wainwright, dog-eared and inked. The Sixth Amendment gives me counsel. It also lets me waive it. If I choose, I can represent myself." "That's correct, Mr. Whitaker." Something stiffened in his face. "You want a trial?" "I want the truth," she said, "on the record." At school, whispers carried faster than the ventilation. Is she crazy? She just wants attention. Why she talk like that? What even is that accent? Teachers did that soft voice concern thing that always hides a warning. "The system isn't for girls like us," one said. "The system isn't for girls like you," Amani translated in her mind, and stayed up anyway, printing cases until the ink ran gray. Over 400 rulings highlighted across borrowed law books and thrift store laptops that ran hot after an hour. She drew timelines. She wrote questions. She rehearsed alone, asking the ceiling for permission to approach, sustain, overrule. On day one, the courtroom was a refrigerator. Too bright, too clean, too echoey. Amani walked in with her mother's pearl studs in her ears and her debate team shoes on her feet. No attorney at her side, no navy skirt suit, just a legal pad and the sound of her heart pacing out a metronome in her throat. "Case of State of Louisiana, Amani Rhodes," the bailiff called. Judge Barrett Sloan, 60s, sharp hairline, reputation for slicing through nonsense, adjusted his robe and peered down. "Miss Rhodes," he said, "you've declined counsel, yes?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you intend to conduct your own defense?" "Yes, sir." A quiet smirk. "Where exactly are you from?" The judge cocked his head. "Having a bit of trouble with your dialect." The chuckles came first like a cough, then like rain. Amani breathed once. Steady. "Right here, Your Honor." "Lower Ninth born and raised." "Well," he said with that thin smile, "let's keep our record clear." Phones were out before anyone could pretend they weren't. A reporter's stream caught it all, captioned by strangers. Judge mocks teen's accent. Watch what happens next. Whitaker strolled to the jury like he owned their next thought. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice dipped in authority, a suspect tried to dodge prosecution by recruiting a minor. That minor, this defendant, inserted herself into a federal probe, obstructing justice. We'll show fingerprints, arrogance, and a dangerous taste for manipulation. This isn't debate club. This is court permission to respond? Amani asked. Opening statements aren't for arguments, Judge Sloan said. Be brief. Yes, sir. She faced the jury, hands steady. He's right about one thing, she said. This isn't a club. She held up the letter the state had entered into evidence. The complaint she helped Mr. DeMarcus write. This is what I did. I didn't tamper with evidence. I documented a concern. I didn't hide the truth. I put a spotlight on it. She looked at the bench. And for the record, Your Honor, I'll keep my accent. I'll also keep everything clear enough for your transcript air-thinned. For a beat, even the judge had no words. Recessed, Amani sat on a hard bench with her notes. A clerk in a wrinkled tie hovered, glancing both ways. You didn't hear this from me, he murmured, but Sloan's been flagged for bias in the past. No one pushes him in open court. He eyed her pad. You look like you might. Day 2, 9 a.m. Amani arrived early. Pages stacked, hair tighter, face calmer. Whitaker breezed in 5 minutes late with a manila folder he held like a trophy. Enjoy your last morning in court, he muttered as he passed. Amani didn't look up. At 4:12 a.m., she'd found it, the crack the state had plastered over with confidence. State, call your witness, Judge Sloan said. Officer Ethan Rooks, arresting officer, took the stand. Whitaker led him through choreography. Yes, he investigated obstruction tied to Mr. DeMarcus. Yes, he found a letter misleading. Yes, he concluded the defendant had injected herself to derail the case. Amani rose. Officer Rooks, the exact time of my arrest? 4:47 p.m., March 14th. And the time the complaint was submitted at K&G Auto to the precinct? 2:15 p.m. that day. Amani lifted a printout. Exhibit D, security footage timestamp 2:45 p.m. shows Mr. DeMarcus dropping the letter while I was still in class. So, if I was in school at 2:45 and arrested after 4:30, how did I insert myself at 2:15? Silence, then a ripple. Judge Sloan adjusted his glasses. Whitaker's jaw clicked. You helped him write it, Rooks managed. Did you see me hand him anything? Hear me coach him? Retrieve a single message between me and the rival garage? No, ma'am. Amani faced the jury. Because there aren't any. The state called Dr. Priya Nguyen, forensics. Miss Nguyen confirmed the defendant's fingerprints were on the letter. Whitaker said, Yes, rear page. Amani nodded. Reading a draft would put prints there, correct? Correct. Your analysis can't claim deception, only contact. Correct. Thank you. It wasn't swagger, it was math. Timeline, contact, intent. Each question a ledger line. Jurors leaned forward. The judge stopped smiling. After lunch, the state played its card. Detective Wade Carver, lead investigator, buzz cut, drawl that came off as command. She stirred trouble, he said. We've seen this before. Detective Carver, Amani said, stepping close enough for her voice to land and stay. Miranda matters, right? Of course. Then why did your team question Mr. DeMarcus while he was in custody without reading him his rights? She lifted a transcript. Your words, it's just a talk. The law calls that custodial interrogation. Objection, Whitaker snapped. Overruled, Judge Sloan said slowly. And about the trouble we've seen before, Amani continued, the ACLU's report last year documented that your precinct violated search and seizure protocols in 27% of cases with black suspects versus 5% with white. Should I assume I'm on trial because I helped a black man use his voice? The wood of the witness stand seemed to creak as Carver leaned in. Those numbers, tell a story, she finished, one you didn't expect to be read aloud. The gavel struck once. The room breathed again. Reporters texted like a second heartbeat. Outside, someone had already cut a clip. Teen dismantles detective with his own transcript. Walking out into the warm spill of afternoon, Amani didn't smile. Not yet. Her mother squeezed her hand until both their knuckles warmed, and Jay spun the ball on one finger like a little planet refusing to wobble. Inside her backpack, Chapter 7 of Louisiana Criminal Procedure was dog-eared to closings. She wasn't getting ready to survive. She was getting ready to win. By day 3, the courthouse had a pulse. Law students from Tulane took notes like they were in a master class. Activists stood in the back with folded arms. A civics teacher smuggled her juniors in on a field lesson. Even Judge Sloan sat taller, as if posture might manufacture control. Whitaker walked in with the swagger of a man who believed he'd found a blade long enough to cut the noise. "The state calls Ms. Yolanda Bell," he said. Amani's stomach dropped. Freshman year English. The woman with the platinum smile and the scalpel comments. "You'll go far if you learn to sound less Southern. Your essays are passionate, but objectivity wins arguments." "Ms. Bell," Whitaker purred, "how would you describe the defendant?" "Very bright," Bell said. Crisp blazer, tighter mouth. "Also, confrontational. She challenged material, spoke out of turn, persuasive to a fault, and capable of manipulating adults. She often believed she was the smartest person in the room." Amani stood. "Objection, character assassination, not motive." "Sustained," Judge Sloan said, surprising even himself. "Damage done? Maybe. Or maybe Bell had just lit the wrong match." Amani approached the stand but didn't sharpen her voice. She softened it, steady, surgical. "Ms. Bell, do you remember asking me to read from To Kill a Mockingbird aloud?" A nod, vaguely. "Do you remember stopping me to say, 'Try to sound more educated'?" Silence stretched. "I may have phrased something poorly. And do you remember my essay drawing a line from that book to Trayvon Martin and Khalif Browder? You graded it C-. Your note, too emotional, not objective enough." Whitaker shifted. A juror blinked 3 times and rubbed his jaw. Amani faced the box. "I was disruptive, only to the comfort of adults who didn't want the truth in the room." She placed a palm on the rail. "No theatrics, just wait. If my crime is refusing to shrink my voice to fit your ruler, then I plead guilty to growth." Judge Sloan didn't gavel. He watched her like a professional, suddenly aware he was in the presence of another one. In the hall, a woman in a navy suit with a Yale pin appeared like a plot twist. "Nora Klein, Innocence Project," she said, handing Amani a card. "That was restraint and precision. If you want a mentor, call Amani." Tucked the card into her blazer. "Later," she promised herself, "if there is a later worth owning." Day 4 arrived like a drumline. Packed gallery, murmurs stacked on murmurs. Whitaker went first for closings. "Do not be fooled," he warned the jury. "If clever words can erase clear violations, we create a precedent that makes every investigation a circus. She's articulate, yes. Smart, yes. But behavior is on trial. Actions," he sat, smoothing the crease of his pant leg like victory could be ironed in. "Ms. Rhodes," the judge said. Amani dragged a simple chair to the center of the room and sat like she was back on her porch steps. She set her backpack by her feet. She looked every juror in the eye. "This," she said, tapping the chair's metal arm, "is where I was when 2 officers told me I was a criminal. 15 minutes after getting off the school bus, a letter in my bag, homework in my bag, and a mother who works through pain because rent doesn't accept apologies." She held up the complaint letter. "This is their proof. Words, not stolen goods, not a bribe. Words arranged so a man who fixes brake lines for a living could be heard. They gave you my fingerprints. That proves I touched my own draft. They gave you a timeline. I showed you I was in class when the letter was filed. They gave you witnesses. I showed you the parts of the story they didn't read out loud." She stood. "I don't want sympathy. I want clarity. Ask yourselves, why am I here? If the answer is that I used my voice, then I am not the one on trial." She returned to the defense table without a flourish. Her mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue that had seen its limit. Jay stared at the jurors like he could dare them into courage. Judge Sloan stared at a fixed point, jaw set, as if the room had tilted without his consent. Deliberations crawled. 30 minutes, then 90, then 3 hours that felt like a hallway with no exit. Amani sat in a side room with water she couldn't swallow and a mother's hand that stayed on her shoulder like a vow. If it isn't enough, Amani whispered, maybe the truth needs a bigger microphone. Lila kissed her forehead. Baby, you are the microphone. The foreman turned out to be a black man with gray at the temples and eyes that remembered fights older than this building. The courtroom filled with breathing and nothing else. In the matter of the state of Louisiana versus Amani Rhodes, he read, we, the jury, find the defendant. He paused long enough for the oxygen to change shape. Not guilty. Sounds layered themselves. Gasps, a sob, the clack of a pen hitting the floor, applause that started in the hallway and rushed in like weather. Amani's knees unlocked. Lila held her. Jay whooped and then covered his mouth like joy might be a contempt charge. The gavel struck. Let the record reflect the defendant is acquitted of all charges, Judge Sloan said. Amani's hand rose before he could stand. Your Honor, may I make a brief statement for the record? A beat, a nod. She didn't face him. She faced the room. This wasn't just about me, she said. It's about every black student told to sand down their syllables to sound right. Every girl told confidence is disrespect. Every neighborhood told to plead out because it's cheaper than dignity. If you think an accent equals ignorance, I hope you were listening. She sat, and for the first time since she'd walked in, Sloane's chin dipped in a small, unguarded nod. Not a smirk, not pity, respect, forced into existence. Outside, the courthouse steps were a tide. Amani! What's next? Microphones shouted, neon logos bobbing. Law school? A book? A podcast? She didn't have a speech. She had a truth. I walked in alone, she said, and I'm walking out with 1,000 voices behind me. Amani! The voice cut through the noise. Detective Carver, no badge, no buzz-cut armor, just a man in a jacket that suddenly looked too big. I owe you an apology. I didn't see you until today. You didn't look, she said. Not cruel, just factual. She turned away. At home, Jay had taped printer paper banners to the walls. You won. Smarter than all of them. Our real judge. The living room smelled like fried catfish in relief. Lila laughed until the sound cracked into a cry she'd been holding since the day Amani learned her letters. A phone buzzed itself dizzy on the coffee table. A DM rose to the top. Harvard pre-law summer. We watched. We're impressed. If you're ready, we're ready to help you build a future. She didn't answer. Not yet. She stepped onto the porch, night warm as a blanket, the city murmuring like family across many rooms. She looked up and said the smallest prayer she knew. Let them keep hearing me. Across town in an office with a view that impressed people more than it helped them, Ada Cole Whitaker closed a file he couldn't make sense anymore. Down the hall, Judge Barrett Sloan stared at his reflection in a dark window and thought about how authority can look like wisdom until someone younger, braver, and clearer speaks. And in the lower ninth, a girl with a voice the world tried to grade learned that it wasn't an accent at all. It was a frequency. She tuned it once. Now she knew how to make it carry.